Hello, YouTube. It is May 28th, 2019. If y'all hear the fan going heavy in the background, we just going to have to hope that my voice projects over it because it's 105 degrees in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's 8 o'clock at night and it's just dropped down to 97. So even with my AC on and my fans, it is still hot in darn gone hot Carolina. But anyways, speaking of hotness, honey, we're here to talk about another darn on hot, controversial darn on subject, honey. And y'all know I am a member of the Beehive, but I'm actually very torn on this. So I'm not going to go fully at Miss Thing, but I'm going to have to get Miss Dionne Warwick together. And it pains me to say that because I have very much respect for Dionne. She's an undeniable legend. And I've actually shouted her out several times. I told y'all my favorite songs. Ironically, Deja Vu is like my favorite song on the B-Day album, which was, reminiscent of, Beyonce. Reminiscent of Deja Vu, originally created by Dionne Warwick way back in 1979. And then fast forward years later to her Lemonade album. Ironically, my favorite song happens to be 6 Inch, which if you listen to the background samples of that music, I can't remember the other song that she sampled, but I definitely know the background harmony was Walk On By, which had, Isaac Hayes and Dionne Warwick in there on that. So you would think Dionne Warwick, like many other legends who have given Beyonce praise. I mean, just to name a few people that gave Beyonce her praise includes the late great Prince, Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Barbara Streisand, and Luther Vandross. And she's also done collabs with these people. And the list just goes on and on. So you would think if anybody would have solidified the iconic status today, it would have been Beyonce, considering that she was actually given high praises and constructive criticism from people of that caliber who were all, I hate to say this, but were more notable than Miss Dionne Warwick. And I'm just speaking the facts, honey. I actually took the time to even do notes, and y'all know typically I don't even do notes, but I wanted to make sure I was not speaking from a fan perspective. I wanted to get all the facts. I did all my research before I got into this darn gone read on Miss darn gone senior citizen Patty Mayonnaise. Now, maybe in her defense, because Dionne Warwick is 79 years old, maybe she is experiencing some dementia. I don't know. But for whatever reason, she offered up Beyonce in an interview with Essence. She just did an interview with Essence magazine. Shout out to Richard Lou Dennis, former owner of Shea Moisture, who brought out, Essence and made it black owned again. So he had her on a Essence interview, and they was talking about artists in general today. Beyonce's name was never even mentioned by Essence. So Miss Warwick decided to bring up Beyonce and gave a backhanded compliment by saying basically, in so many words that she's the creme de la creme, the trash hunter, because you basically shitted on the whole community, and then said, well, Beyonce is the most admirable. But then you went to a long list of comparing people from your time and saying, well, Beyonce's not that, and I didn't think some people would last 2 decades in this league, but they need to last another 4, 5 generations. I mean, another 40, 50 years before we could even consider them icons. Which I was confused by that for many reasons, and we're going to get into. But that's what she said. She said you have to stand the test of time. She also said, quote, that she don't see any of the girls and guys today music being, played in heavy rotation 10 years from now. Okay, hold on to that. And you got the average 45 years because 40 to 50. Now, she said as long as 60 years, but I'm going to use the 40 to 50. So she said 4 to 5 decades. So an average of 45 years. And everybody was darn gone. And I thought it was like a 70-30 split. 30% of people was like, Dionne, you done lost your mind. The other 70% was ironically in agreement with her. And I find that the reason why 70% is in agreement with her is simply because it was the topic of Beyonce, and a lot of people like to hate on the Queen Bee, honey. We all know Beyonce's darn on other stands are the ones that like to hate on her for no reason. Hate on me, hate on me, hate on me, hate on me. I can't even sing today, y'all. I'm just getting over a cold. I know y'all saying, well, bitch, your darn gonna nose darn gonna cuts up in every video, but seriously, I'm getting over real nasty cold, so excuse me, my voice darn gonna messed up too, but anyways, Miss darn gonna had a racial, honey. I done lost my train of thought. But anyways, she said you need 40 to 50 years, and I'm confused, and people darn gonna agreeing with her. But these will be the same people who would consider several other people who Dionne also threw under the bus to be darn on legends and icons. See, y'all was so quick to jump on the Dionne Warwick's Beyonce bashing with her backhanded compliment, because to call somebody the la creme of trash is not no damn compliment. Don't call me the darn on top diva of darn on trash and say that I won't even match up to these people when my darn on accolades have actually surpassed them. And we're going to get into all, well, actually, I don't have the time for this video to go through Beyonce's long list of accomplishments, but I just got 10 bullet points of some of the top ones that she has accomplished. But anyways, y'all was so quick to jump into Dionne's darn corner and not realize that with her saying that, she actually trashed numerous artists, not from just this generation. Because if she would have kept it to this generation and would have kept Beyonce's name out of her mouth and she would have just spoken in general, I wouldn't have had no problem with it. But the two main things is you're gonna darn gonna speak upon Beyonce's name, who actually has surpassed you, and then you're gonna darn gonna set a requirement so strenuous and high that darn gonna a whole other group has darn gonna been dropped into this. So I want to go into the list of darn on people who wouldn't be considered relevant based off of Dionne Warwick's perspective, because she said you have to have over 4 decades of consistent work. So we're going to start off with one of the 3 main people who's compared to arguably some people consider the best entertainer of all time, which is Michael Jackson. I put him in the top 5. I personally wouldn't say he's the best of all time, but most people universally consider Michael Jackson to be the best of all time. And only people who are comfortably compared to him is Beyonce, his predecessor James Brown, and then the one that he has always had direct competition with was Prince. Now, for y'all that don't know when Prince's album first came out, Prince came out in 1978. And unfortunately, he died, 2016. So based off of Dionne Warwick's rhetoric, not only wouldn't Beyonce be considered, and once again, whether you think, Beyonce deserves to be icon or not, that's not the point at this moment. I want you to think of all the other people who would be eradicated from icon status if Dionne was to have it her way. Prince only been in the game for 38 years. He did not quite make it to the 40-year mark. Unfortunately, his untimely passing cut him off at the 38-year mark. So is we saying that Prince, who is the only person from that time to be directly compared to Michael Jackson, who can dance in sits and chills, I walks in a club like nobody been. Mr. Purple Rain, honey, you saying Purple Rain ain't considered a timeless hit? All the darn on shit that darn on Prince done, he's not considered a classic? Because everybody that she named to compare to Beyonce wasn't even from the 70s and 80s. She compared them from the 50s and 60s. So you basically threw in all of the 70s and 80s girls with the 90s girls as well. So while y'all thought she was just bashing millennials, she was bashing Generation X as well. Because Prince wouldn't even be considered the darn icon based off of Miss Dionne Warwick. Another person is Janet Jackson, who came out with her self-titled album, Janet Jackson, back in 1982. I mean, Janet. She named it just like Beyonce did hers in 2013 to give somewhat homage to Janet. Janet did it first in 1982. So that is what, 37 years? Janet Jackson ain't considered darn iconic, honey. Janet Jackson ain't going to stand the test of time in the next 10 years, even though her shit has been in heavy rotation more than you over the past 3 decades. But you know what? Let's continue to move on. Madonna came out in 1983, a year later, so she's been in this game for 36 years. You think she can't stand the test of time? You think even though she is the third highest selling act in the history of music, she's only behind U2 and the Beatles. She has surpassed over 1.2 billion in tour sales. She has sold over 300 million records. You don't think she is not considered iconic? You don't think she don't have a universal iconic look? But okay. Another person, Missy Elliott, Miss Super Duper Fly, who even though she started out early in the 90s in a girl group, I can't think of the name right now, but she popped off on a solo career back in 1997. So only 22 years, the same as Beyonce. So are we saying Missy Elliott, who is the top selling female rapper in the history of music, who is the baddest innovator in music? So the top selling female rapper is not considered iconic because she's been out since 1997 only. And the reason why I wanted to darn gonna point out Missy Elliott is because whether you think Beyonce is iconic or not, you can't darn gonna deny Missy Elliott. Missy Elliott is literally the top of her game and has always been ahead of her game. People are just doing stuff now that she was doing 20 years ago. So she got the originality. She actually wrote for your niece Dionne Warwick. She's written a couple songs for matter of fact, she wrote on Whitney Houston last album. So she wrote on your own niece last album. She's written for Beyonce over 8 times. She's written for Monica. She's written for the likes of all the greatest, Tony Braxton. And the list goes on and on of all the people that Missy Elliott has actually written for. And she's actually introduced into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which is very rare for a rapper to even get that accolade. So you wouldn't consider her iconic because of the time only, even though her and Beyonce has been in this industry for the exact same amount of time. So now, what's your excuse? What's your excuse now? I want somebody to darn gonna say Missy Elliott is not deserving, given all that I just darn gonna broke out on her. Once again, Destiny's Child, 97, became popular in 1998. The song's still in heavy rotation to this day and was the top selling girl group of all time in the 90s. Now, they say all time in general, but I'm not going to slight, the Supremes because they documents, they started out during the 1960s and they just couldn't darn gonna believe a black group actually sold the amount that they done. So I originally give the credit to the Supremes for being the overall best group of all time as far as overall accolades and sales. But as far as the 90s, Destiny's Child is that group. Actually surpassed anybody in the 80s as well. And nobody today has topped Destiny's Child as far as a girl group. And Beyonce was the leader of that group. Now that's only that's the same time as Missy Elliott. So if we're gonna say that Beyonce can't get it, then we saying Missy can't get it as well. We saying Jay-Z, who's also been introduced, I think he's in the Rock Hall of Fame. Something that Dionne Warwick, I don't even think has managed to even get into. It came out in 1996 and is considered to be one of the top selling rappers in the history of rap. You saying that he's not iconic? And he came out just 1 year before Beyonce? You thinking that his songs won't be played 10 years from now? Mary J. Blige, the queen of focus. Once again, Mary J. Blige, queen of hip hop and soul. Actually, I just seen on the commercial she's performed at the BET Awards this year, so she's still out touring. Done gone through numerous breakups and everything. Has transitioned into multiple genres of music. Has darn gone successfully sold albums internationally. Has collaborated with Mr. Bennett and everything with the London Sessions album, and then goes into hip hop, R&B, and soul. You thinking her stuff ain't gonna be a classic in 10 years? Even though we've been darn gone singing them sorrowful songs, SORROWFUL, not the other sorrowful. For people who can't distinguish the southern accent with this code, but how much darn gone Mary be putting us through the emotions with the sorrowful songs? You think her darn gone stuff ain't memorable? And then her darn gone two-step darn gone jigs, honey. I don't need no hateration, toleration in this destiny. Fine, 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 fine. Ooh, like what I see when I'm looking at me when I walk up past them. You telling me none of Mary J. Blige's were for iconic status? And she came out in '92. And you know we can go all day on naming people, but I'm just gonna go to about two more people and that's it. Because like I said, just all the people that she disrespected in general. But I had to narrow it down to like 10 people. Another person would be considered Little Richard. Now Little Richard, even though came out during Dionne Warwick's time from 1958, but he's not consistent because she said not only do you have to have the years, but you have to have the consistency. And I did some research, and Little Richard's last album was in 1992, which means he only has 34 years in the industry. So are we saying that Little Richard's darn on legacy don't mean shit? Even though Little Richard was the one that directly influenced Prince, and both of their legacies are more notable than yours, Miss Warwick. But based off of your 4 decade plus rule, they wouldn't be considered relevant though. And then last but not least, the legendary French singer Celine Dion, honey, the darn old vocal technician. She's not considered a legend because she came out in 1981. And like I said, we can go all day, even down to everybody in hip hop music. Run DMC, 1984. And then they broke up sometime shortly later. They haven't been on no tour. So they only lasted for about, I'd say about a little over 10 years. But you're saying that they wouldn't be considered iconic status? And anybody in hip hop and R&B really, because that genre only been around for a little over 30 some years. So you're saying that nobody in that genre, from Run DMC, and Ice Cube's group, all of them wouldn't be considered iconic simply because they ain't put 40 years in the game, girl. Bye. Sit down and have a tall glass of darn gone iced tea and enjoy your darn gone legendary status. And this is what I don't like about these darn gone legends. Darn gone coming out and darn gone putting 20 on 10 with their stuff. It's like, yes, you were that bitch and you are a legend, and I can't take that away from you, Dionne. But the difference between you, and I have to put the race card into this. Like I said, I have to put the race card into this. The main thing that separates us from white people is sometimes we can't always blame it on the white man for darn on holding us down and blocking us out. You know, such as, you know, how they done took country music away from us, and they have Little Nas X. He had to struggle to get to #1 on the country chart with his song, even though country came from black people, and even with somebody as a legend such as Beyonce. Once again, y'all might not consider her a legend, but the traditional definition of a legend is somebody who stood the test of time for 2 decades and has made notable accomplishments in their industry and has paved the way for another generation, all which Beyonce has done. So I'm just stating the traditional facts of what legend means in that sense. Whether you agree with it or not, she is a modern day legend. But even they blocked her as far as the country music moves. But when it comes to their own, notice that they don't darn go trash talk their own like this. Only black people will come out and just darn gonna put 20 on 10 and trash talk their own. Because if you replace Dionne Warwick with, let's say, Barbara Streisand, or if you replace them with a country artist like Dolly Parton or Reba McEntire, and they had to answer that same question, I could not possibly see them singling out Taylor Swift or Miley Cyrus, even though they would have every right to. But they would still have enough decorum to keep the darn on conversation in general and darn on even offer the uplift they own. I noticed that the legends in the white community, they were in the Latina community. They would actually collab with other people, even if they're not necessarily the best, in my opinion. Even if their stuff is written, they lip sing and all that. Per example, J Lo, you know, jumping on a Cardi B track. Really, uh, you know, Dolly Parton ain't saying nothing on when Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana went through her darn on hip hop phase. You know, they darn gonna have enough darn on decorum to darn on not trash they other generations. They darn gonna actually uplift them as opposed to darn gonna tearing them down with some backhanded shade, honey. But every time, then Dionne, and like I said, Dionne's not the only one that's done this, but she's the upteenth one that's done this. And it's just sad and pitiful. Because like I said, for her to not only come for Beyonce, but inadvertently come for numerous of our people, ranging from Prince, ranging from Missy Elliott, who were considered comfortably among the top of their darn on time. And Dionne Warwick, I hate to really darn on cut you down to humbleness, but somebody has to. You're not even in the top 10 of your darn on time. I mean, you are one of these girls that are iconic, but you are not in the top 10. And you know, this can be another debate question. Honey, I'm gonna have a field day with y'all in the darn on comments because I'm gonna pin 3 different darn on questions. I want y'all to respond. And here's one of them. Do you think Dionne Warwick is in the top 10? Because if anybody's gonna be so brazen to say these types of comments, it should at least be somebody who's in comfortably in the top 10 of they darn on lane. And off the top of my head, I can name 10 people who's darn on as far above darn on Miss Warwick. And I'm going to stick to her era in the generation directly after. I'm not even going to mention anybody in the 90s. So just off the top of my head, we're going to go to Stevie Wonder. We're going to go to Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, Michael Jackson. We're going to go to Prince. We're going to go to Shaka Khan. We're going to go to Elton John. We're going to go to Barbra Streisand. We're going to go to, okay, we take darn on Shaka Khan off. I would say, no, yeah, we're going to keep her on there. So once again, Stevie Wonder, Prince, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Madonna, Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion, Elton John, Aretha Franklin, and this is in no particular order, so don't think Aretha Franklin would definitely not be number 9, so this is just random. Aretha Franklin, so Patty, Aretha, that rounds out the top 10 in no particular order. And then we can go on to a couple other people that I would think that would be ahead of darn on Dionne Warwick. So you're not even in the top 10 of your darn on generations because like you said, you put in 4 decades of work. So that's why I compare you to some of the girls in the 80s. I'm not going to compare you to the 90s babies because then you get to use the excuse of, oh, well, they had this technology and I'm not with the holograms and all that. I compared you all to darn on people who was in the exact same predicament as you. So you don't get to use the excuse that, oh, well, Beyonce has modern day technology. She has all this behind her. She grew up in a high class family. I grew up poor. Michael Jackson grew up from humble beginnings. Stevie Wonder's darn full out blind is more and is more notable than you, honey. And even Stevie Wonder can see that. And I would even go and throw in Ray Charles up in there. Little Richard would be number 11. Do we need to keep going on to all the people who's more ahead of you? But then you want to shit on somebody like Missy Elliott, who's the top of her game. Beyonce, who's the top of her game. Prince, which was in the top 5. But you're not even in the top 10, girl. Once again, I understand that you up there in age and you don't know all the girls and guys like that, but I want to introduce you to an artist named Kendrick Lamar. And listen to the song Sit Down, Be Humble. Because don't think because you up there and you darn gone nearly catch a vein years old, honey, that you darn gone can't get a reality check. I don't care that you damn near 80 years old. Somebody need to get you together. Because number one, didn't nobody ask for your opinion on the Queen Bee, honey. This ain't about me standing for Beyonce. This is about me standing for all my artists. And I'm not going to let one darn gone legend who's not even in the top 10 to darn gonna tear down the entire black, because regardless of whether Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus and all of them was also put in that, it's just personally from a racial perspective, I find it to be more problematic from a black side. Because, like I said, if you was to put any white artist in Dionne Warwick's place, Barbra Streisand, not Diana Ross, but Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion, all of them, I couldn't see them saying the same thing. I couldn't. And like I said, this is not to tear her down. She's 78, but still close enough to 80 than to anything else. Been in the industry since 1959. Most popular songs: Deja Vu, 1979, Promises, 1968. A House Is Not a Home, 1979. I Say a Little Prayer, 1967, and Heartbreaker, 1982. Not taking anything away from her, and she has more than that, but those are just the ones that I was able to research that are among her most memorable. Oh, Walk On. Did I say Walk On By? I didn't include Walk On By, but Walk On By was another one, 1969. The list goes on and on. But still, for you to darn gone feel so bold to say somebody has to put in 4 decades of work, but the general status of icon don't even have a timestamp on it, because you have people such as darn gone one-hit wonders who are considered iconic. And because are we going to revoke darn on Lauryn Hill status now off of that one Fugees album? The Miseducation is Lauryn Hill. Are we going to revoke her iconic status? And maybe, she was thinking of a different icon, like overall artistry. But even on overall artistry, like I said, it's just too many people that has that darn on consistent history that has stood the test of time, that has debunked darn on Dionne Warwick's statement. And like I said, I don't agree with it. And especially when it comes to Beyonce. And I wanted to end it out on Beyonce's accomplishments, and we're going to leave it up to y'all to answer the 3 questions. Number one, do you think Dionne Warwick has any room to talk when she's not even in the top 10? That's a two-part question, because then the follow-up is, out of the artists that I mentioned, do you think Dionne Warwick could even squeeze into the top 10 when I compare Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, Stevie Wonder, Shaka Khan, and the Celine Dion, Elton John, and the list goes on and on? When we compare artists in the 90s who are at the top of their game, such as Missy Elliott. But then the final question, I saved among the best for last. Because I ain't want to, I know y'all was gonna think that this was just gonna be me ranting 30 minutes in favor of Beyonce. No, that's why I saved her for last on her accomplishments, on why Beyonce would be considered not only an icon, a legend, but actually has surpassed Dionne Warwick. Now, to start off with one of her most accomplishments, Beyonce is the second most Grammy honored woman in the history of the Grammys with 22 Grammy wins. Alan, I think her name is Alison Krauss, has 27 Grammys, a country singer. But Beyonce is set to break that probably within her next 2 albums. And then she got the Lion King soundtrack, which gets nominated for a Grammy too. So between that and 2 more albums, Beyonce can easily tie for the most Grammy honored woman in history. But she's currently the second most Grammy honored woman in history and the most Grammy nominated with over 41 nominations. She's the highest earning black artist of all time. With both tour sales, she has the highest grossing tour for any black artist in the history of music, with the highest tour, the Mrs. Carter Show, exceeding, I want to say, 200 million. And then her recent tour with Jay-Z actually surpassed that one and grossed $250 million. So the Mrs. Carter tour, then the On the Run tour grossed 200 million, and then the latest one grossed $250 million. So she consistently brings over $200 million in her tours. Dionne, I want to say, I don't even think you brought in $200 million with your tours in a lifetime, let alone per tour. But you want to talk on Beyonce's name, okay? On to the next, on to the next. First female to win 6 Grammys in one night. It took I think it took nearly 10 years for another artist to match that accomplishment. Shout out to Adele, who also won 6 Grammys in one night, but Beyonce set the precedent first, way back in, I want to say, 2007. It made the Guinness Book of World Records. 800K in album sales in one weekend without any promotion. I remember it like it was yesterday because it was just after the last day of my first semester of college. When I was at Fayetteville Tech, it was Friday the 13th. She literally dropped it on Friday the 13th, a promo link. I did not have iTunes. I didn't own any iTunes device, so I had to darn on learn how to download iTunes onto my laptop, the old one that I had back in the day, and then I had to buy her album before it came out 2 weeks later in stores. But just online alone, she sold over 800,000 copies in 3 days without any promotion. So you can't say that, oh, her media presence and all that was what gave her sales. No, it was the fact that she's just that darn on queen, honey. Something that Dionne would not be able to match up to in this day and age. But once again, all respect to her legendary status of D-Day. But don't shit on the queen of today, baby. But moving on. Youngest R&B artist to be nominated for a Grammy at 18 years old. Biggest selling female group of all time. Like I said earlier, to reiterate, Destiny's Child was considered to be the biggest selling group of all time, but I would say the second. Once again, I always give respect to Diana Ross and the Supremes in that regard, but they're the biggest selling group I feel of the 90s. And overall, the second biggest group of all time. Over 60 million records sold. Most Grammy not Oh, and I already said that most Grammy nominated woman in history with over 40 nominations. And the list goes on and on from top tens that Beyonce has had to um doubling up on certain shows like 1 and 6 in Park. She was the first one to introduce two songs on the show at the same time. She's the most nominated Billboard artist in the history of music, most darn on nominated BET artist in the history of music, and the list goes on and on of her accomplishments. Has been working 22 consecutive years across multiple genres of music, from pop, R&B, techno, dance, Spanish, reggae, hip hop, gospel, and the list goes on and on. Versus Dionne Warwick, you're very skilled in your singing, but your singing is very much that peaceful, serene music that you listen to on grocery shopping at Aldi's, and nothing wrong with that. Somebody has to keep the serenity, with the music. But you're more so a one-trick pony with your stuff. Your voice is not as dynamically versatile as Beyonce. I can't see you darn on switching up and going into rap music, and then trap, and then hip hop, and then gospel, then R&B, and then dance, and then singing in Spanish. I can't see you being that versatile. Now, maybe if we was darn on comparing Beyonce to Eartha Kitt, this would be a whole different story because Eartha Kitt actually sung in over 7 different languages. Maybe if we was comparing, just being able to collab with different artists in general, such as Patti LaBelle and Aretha Franklin and Prince and, Michael Jackson, this would be a different story. But Dionne Warwick, you're not even in that regard. But you have the most shit to darn gonna say. And everybody's darn gonna jumping into your darn gone corner because it's all shit talking on Beyonce. But now to close this video out, after presenting all the darn on stuff that I've darn gone presented on not only she shitted on Beyonce, but she shitted on a whole genre of music, hip hop and hip hop and rap, which has not been out for 40 years. So by default, would anybody in hip hop and rap music not be considered iconic just because it ain't been 4 decades? Once again, I'm guilty of Missy Elliott is one of my faves, but she is undeniably the top selling artist of all time as of current, as far as rap artists go, female rap artists. Jay-Z, are we going to say he's not within, I think, the top 7 all time highest selling rappers of all time? I think he sold well over 10 million US albums alone. But once again, you're not even in the top 10. Mary J. Blige, queen of hip hop and soul. Celine Dion, list goes on and on. So leave y'all comments down below. Do y'all think she makes it in the top 10 to even be able to critique? After running down Beyonce's resume and summarizing it within 5 minutes, because to go through her complete, list of accomplishments would take over a half hour. But just off of the ones that I mentioned in 5 minutes, do you think that Beyonce is definitely considered an icon, considering that once again, 20 years, which has been the standard? I don't know why the goalpost is being moved to 40 all of a sudden, because when it came to Tina Turner, Dionne Warwick, Diana Ross, by the time you got the Prince and Michael Jackson, well, Michael Jackson actually was singing at the age of 5, so he grew up alongside them. He was just very young. But by the time you got to Janet Jackson's career and Prince's career, they were considered icons by that time at the 20-year mark. So why is the goalpost being moved? Why is the goalpost being moved when y'all was considered icons by the 1980s? And then the same thing for Janet Jackson, because a lot of people will just lie and say Beyonce is not iconic. But then when we put Missy Elliott, who came in the same year, y'all cannot lie and say that she's not iconic, and she came out the same year. Janet Jackson a decade before. So the questions will be down below for y'all to answer. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or y'all can feel free to, dislike. Hopefully don't get as many dislikes as my Michael Jackson video. Y'all drugged me for fifth, honey. Took me a minute to get my darn on edges back from that dragon. So make sure if y'all have some critiques, I welcome the critiques as well. So thumbs up or thumbs down, share, subscribe, and I will see y'all soon with more videos. Mwah.